So, if you're a retailer, then this episode is a must listen for you. We're sitting down with a legal expert to break down the latest on the Commerce Commission's crackdown on Fair Trading Act breaches. From common compliance mistakes to expert tips on avoiding prosecution, we've got you covered. Plus, you find out exactly what to do if the Commerce Commission comes knocking. So, tune in to protect your business. Kia ora, I'm Carolyn Young, Chief Executive of Retail NZ. I'm joined today by Jaesen Sumner, who's the founding partner with Ford Sumner Lawyers. Welcome, Jaesen.
Yeah, good morning.
Look, I understand the Commerce Commission has been focusing on retail compliance around consumer protection laws, and that as a result, some retailers have been brought to task for non-compliance. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, you would have heard in the media a number of big operators have been called to task by the Commerce Commission. I'll refer to them as the ComCom. Now, every year, the Commerce Commission sets out a number of priorities and what they're looking at in the year or two ahead. Recently, they set out their priorities, and one was looking at the grocery sector, and that's been in the media quite a lot, having a look at supermarket pricing. The other area that they're focusing on is unconscionable conduct that departs from what they say is the expected standards of business and goes against good conscience. So they're looking at quite closely issues around pricing and the like. And you would have seen in the last couple of years and picking up pace this year, a number of, like I said, a number of big operators being brought to task over those kind of issues. So the ComCom certainly has a focus on these matters at the moment, and they're looking quite closely at quite a few operators. So it's a good time just to refresh your memory of the Fair Trading Act and some of the obligations on your members.
And so when you're talking about pricing, is that where businesses need to make sure if they are advertising a discounted price, that it actually really is a discounted price and they can determine from what price and what date it's been discounted?
Yeah, exactly. So when you are setting a price, it should be the price. I mean, that's pretty basic. But what we've seen is a number of pricing errors over a substantial period with some operators.
Yeah.
Well, they say are pricing errors where you end up paying a lot more than the advertised price. The ComComs looked at that and considered that to be a breach of the Fair Trading Act. And a really good example of that is the Look Sharp prosecution. They were caught, I guess, using one for a better word, over a period of pricing errors, which resulted in customers paying around 33% more than the advertised price. They said it was, some pricing discrepancies and the like, but the resultant effect is that when you advertise at a certain price and it comes in about a third higher, that is misleading, deceptive conduct, the Fair Trading Act. And in regard to the supply of goods, the ComCom said, well, that's not acceptable, and they ultimately fined the organisation there $292,500. So you'll see that the penalties for taking and making those errors are quite substantial. So it's worth just bearing in mind that you must get your pricing right and not deviate from that. It does happen a lot.
So are there any other particular reoccurring themes that are happening at the moment?
Yeah, another thing that's ongoing and has been picking up pace is around safety issues. Now, there's been a published decision with Bed Bath & Beyond, and your members would have seen that in the media. Bed Bath & Beyond sold 27,000 products that basically didn't include the safety information as required by the legislation. And that related to simple things. It was a sale of pajamas and hot water bottles, and they didn't include the fire hazard information. Now, Bed Bath & Beyond said, well, that was isolated oversights. We recalled the products and we're trying to remedy the issue regarding the defective labels. The ComCom brought prosecutions against Bed Bath & Beyond, and the interesting point there's a bit of gymnastics with the court in terms of calculating the appropriate fine. But in essence the result there was, as a result of missing that product information, Bed Bath & Beyond were fined $230,000 for breaching the Fair Trading Act. The Commerce Commission made a statement after that said it was one of the largest number of non-compliant products let into the market. And the law was made, and I'm reading this so I get it right, but the law was made because products that have caused serious injury for Parliament to recognise that people need to be warned of the dangers of some products. It wasn't the fact that the products may have been dangerous. It was the fact that the labelling was absent, and that was enough to trigger a significant response, prosecutions and significant fines of $230,000.
Certainly is a significant amount of money for any business. And so what recommendations would you have to our members to help them avoid any possible prosecution?
Yeah, so I mean, it's probably you don't have to be a legal scholar to work this out, but it's essentially from Look Sharp, from the lessons from that prosecution are that you have to ensure that your pricing's accurate. It can't be misleading and deceptive. You have to be able to, if you go into a business or you buy online that says the price is $100, that should be the price. There shouldn't be significant hidden costs that you end up paying $130 or $40 for. That can trigger Comcom's interest. So that's a real basic 101, and it's surprising how many companies or organisations actually don't adhere to that. If you've got products that could be harmful, make sure the labelling's accurate. Make sure that you have everything specified, and such things as if the labels are missing, if there's been an error in manufacture and you're putting those out there, then you could be liable for significant penalties. I think the other issue that's caught everyone's attention recently as well, which is some of the basics around pricing and the like, is also around this greenwashing concept, where products have been advertised as environmentally friendly, great for the climate, great for the environment and the like. Now, if any of your members are doing that, they need to be satisfied that what's being represented by those products that they're putting out there actually are environmentally friendly. They are good for the environment, and they are what they say, because there's been quite a few investigations recently there where a lot of these products don't meet the standards, don't meet the expectations, and that can place you in a bit of jeopardy as well, because obviously everyone wants to be, at the moment, environmentally friendly and buy good products, but if you're advertising them as that and they're not, then just be aware you could be in the Comcom's eyes as well. That's quite important.
So to me, it sounds like accuracy. It sounds like, you need to be accurate in your pricing. You need to be accurate in the information you provide consumers. You need to be accurate in your labelling, and you need to know that if you're purporting something to be able to do A, B, C, or to be X, Y, Z, that it should actually be accurate in what you're saying. So I think that's probably a really important thing for retailers to be aware of. But I guess if something does go wrong, that's, can be a challenge, right? So what happens, what should a retailer do if they're contacted by the Commerce Commission with some concerns around some trading activity that's happened in their store?
Yeah, so there is obviously, if you've been contacted by the Commerce Commission or Comcom, they've obviously had perhaps a complaint or been notified somehow of the issues. It's important to comply with Comcom's request, but you are entitled to seek legal advice and ascertain your position before you respond. Normally, the Comcom, they do take an approach where they'll ask you for a response, and then they'll consider that before they decide whether or not it warrants an investigation. So they do a bit of a triage system where they go through the process and look at it and see whether there's any merit. If you are contacted by the Comcom, be very specific in what they're asking for and what they want from you. And if you have any doubts, then you do need to seek legal advice as to your response. You're entitled to do that, and your response should be carefully formulated with your best interests at heart as well, and also in compliance with the request, because they do have quite wide-ranging powers if you don't comply. So not complying is not an option. Compliance with appropriate advice framed around that is the best way to go. So I would advise your members to pick up the phone, send an email through with the issues and the requests so it can be analysed, and have a quick look at that to make sure you don't want to open yourself up to significant liabilities if you respond by yourself and you miss something or disclose something that shouldn't be there. And I guess the other issue around your members may want to consider is, do they have insurance for these kind of matters? Does it cover Comcom investigations or legal issues? If so, you do need to review your policy, and you should then take legal advice around that, because you don't want to take any steps that would invalidate your policy. And that is a very common thing that happens. There's a response made, and then the insurers will decline cover. So my advice is pick up the phone, send an email before any response is made at all, just to make sure you're in the right position.
Really solid advice. Look, thank you so much for joining us today, Jason. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you and hear how Ford Sumner are continuing to support retailers around New Zealand. Ford Sumner are a really important partner of Retail NZ. They offer our members an exclusive 10% discount off our legal services. If you get in touch with Yev through our advice line, she'll be able to forward through the details through to Ford Sumner. But, really thanks again, Jason. So don't forget, I think to our members, really the first thing to do is, if you get contacted by ComCom about a potential breach, take a breath, understand what they're asking, and pick up and get some advice. Sometimes you have to pay a little bit of money to save a little bit of money. So make sure you get that really strong advice. So thanks again, Jason.
No, not a problem. And like I said, I'm happy to help your members and happy to take any calls. And if we can help, we'll do the best we can. And of course, we can obviously offer that discount as well. So just pick up the phone, and we're always happy for an initial chat.
Yoda, that's fantastic. Look, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. It was part of our Empowering Retail series, your go-to resource for short, actionable insights designed to take your retail business to the next level. Watch for our other episodes and don't forget to subscribe. But until next time, ka kite anō. Bye for now.
Thank you.